Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Plant Healthcare PLC presentation relating to its pipeline of novel plant response elicitors, pre-tech products. Throughout this presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be available via the Investor Meet Company dashboard. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Jongmin Wei, Chief Scientific Officer, Mark Turner, Director of Technology Licensing, and Chris Richards, CEO of Plant Healthcare. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that introduction, Paul. My name is Chris Richards. I'm CEO of Plant Healthcare. Just to introduce myself, I've been in this industry for many, many years, 20 years in a company which today is called Syngenta in many places around the world. And then from 2003, I was headhunted to become CEO of a Japan-based company called Arista Life Science, which I ran first as CEO, then as chairman for 12 years, passing through a series of private equity and finally New York listed entities. Very pleased to be with you today, and if I could pass to my colleague Jongmin Wei for him to introduce himself, please.
Good morning or good afternoon over there. My name is Jongmin Wei. I work for Plant Healthcare in a capacity as a Chief Scientific Officer and a VP for R&D. My background is protein engineering and plant microbial interaction mechanism study. I have been working on protein-based plant response elicitor for almost 3 decades. I'm the original inventor for many, many different patents, and also the senior author for the first discovery on a proteinaceous-based HR elicitor that is predecessor for today's pre-tech technology. So glad to be here, and we'll be excited to interact with you guys in the next 20-30 minutes.
Thanks, Jongmin. Mark?
Yes, thank you. My name is Mark Turner. I am the Director of Product Development and Licensing for Plant Healthcare, where I provide sort of global oversight of our efforts to develop pre-tech products. I've been with the company for going on 3 years. Prior to that, I was with Bayer Crop Science in a number of business development and global alliance management roles. And I'm pleased to have this opportunity today to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. So let's get into the presentation then. I suggest we turn our cameras off so that you can see the slides better. We are very pleased today to be presenting to you Plant Healthcare's revolutionary new technology, pre-tech, which we're very, very excited about. And after a number of years of research and more than $20 million of spend, we are now moving into the launch phase with the first launch of a peptide product in the second half of next year. So what is pre-tech? The easy way to think about pre-tech is these are like vaccines for plants. They make the plants feel healthy, and that delivers increased crop yield and quality. And Jongmin Wei will tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. Pre-tech stands for Plant Response Elicitor Technology. That's what we call the technology. It's an entirely natural technology derived from natural proteins and has particularly good ESG credentials. These are low toxicity, no residue products. And it's not a single product. It's a broad pipeline with 3 platforms and many, many different differentiated products. We've designed these to be compatible with mainstream agriculture. We've designed them to be cheap to make so that they are highly cost effective in use and provide very substantial benefits to growers at relatively low cost. So you can see on the slide one example from Brazilian soy, where we plan to launch next year, where very substantial financial benefits accrue to growers. Where we are today, after 8 years of research, we're expecting registration first in Brazil in the first half of next year, and then in the US in 2022, with that first launch in Brazil soybeans next year. We're also very excited to have announced last month a joint development agreement with Wilbur Ellis for certain peptides and crops in the US. So here we are after 8 years of effort and more than $20 million spent, poised to enter markets worth more than $5 billion. And we look forward to telling you a bit more about that over the next few minutes. Xiongmin.
Thank you, Chris. So as Chris pointed out, it is a platform technology. What does that mean? It's not single molecules. And in the last 5 years, we have created by design a particular amino acid sequence that leads to a peptide. That's the backbone of the pre-tech technology platform. So we designed and created over 1,000 molecules and then go through a typical screening, field test, or the other analysis, come down to selected multiple dozens peptides as a candidate for the pipeline product development. And further, we focus on 4 candidates, and today will become individual product. So in the last 5 years, with a $20 million investment, we come up with understanding not only how to design molecules, also understanding the mode of the action mechanisms. I don't know in the audience how many people know, plant, just like animal and a human, have a very strong immune response. You think about when the bad environmental condition comes, animal, human can run away, but plant cannot. So from the evolution, they develop very powerful mechanism to respond to the various environment. So that's our technology able to trigger that immune response. So Chris talked about as a vaccine. So the second part of the technology is that we have a broad and also secured patent position. We have filed over 50 patents that covers the composition matter. That will be different molecules, sequence, and also the methods of application. So some of the crucial patent and have been issued, not only just a file. So then the 6th product, we've decided to further move on to commercialize it and go through serious multiple year, multiple crop, multiple global regions, field tests, prove the efficacy. And not only that, we also figured out a simple water-based fermentation production, cost-effective, 0 discharge, and the production method can be easily transferred to a tooler, so we don't have to build the capital, build our own manufacturing plant. So that's another advantage of the technology. So with that said, and we are close to regulatory approval, and once this approval coming, and we are ready to go to commercial market, launch the first product in Brazil, and then Mark, my colleague, in the next few slides, will tell you the plan and the target for the commercialization. Mark?
Thank you, Xiongmin. This slide describes our activities in Brazil with our leading product candidate, PHC 279, which is being registered and prepared for launch for the seed treatment for Asian soybean rust in soybeans. Asian soybean rust is a devastating disease in Brazilian soybeans that can result in the loss of the entire crop. In Brazil, they currently spend more than $2 billion annually on disease control in soybeans. The majority of that is spent for control of Asian soybean rust. So we've had 2 years of strong field trial results of our product. And on average, we've determined that it provides additional yield benefit worth approximately $75 per hectare to the growers, as well as improving disease control. And if you apply that $75 per hectare across the 38 million hectares of soybeans planted in 2020, you can see that the potential value to the soybean crop nationwide is approximately $2.5 billion. In addition to increasing yield, this product will provide the opportunity potentially for growers to reduce their use of current foliar fungicides, which are toxic, and certainly many growers are concerned with the environmental profile of the products they use on their fields and are eager to adopt safer and more environmentally friendly products like PHC 279. So as I've said, there's a grower benefit in terms of yield and reduced disease pressure, which will help the existing products maintain activity longer in their fields and delay the development of resistance to current products when they're combined with PHC 279. As Zhang-Min mentioned, we're scaling up production to launch this product in the second half of 2021. We previously submitted the registration to the federal agencies for that, and we're expecting approval of this product in Brazil any day now, really, but probably in the first half of 2021. The exciting thing is that there are a number of companies that are currently testing this product themselves on their own fields. And in addition to that large number of companies testing the product, many of the companies are interested in visiting our fields that we have out right now to see how the product is performing. And I fully expect that we'll enter into commercial distribution agreements with one or more of these companies sometime early in 2021. On the right side of the slide, what you see are pictures of our actual fields that have been treated with the PHC 279 seed treatment. The top picture shows a healthy soybean field, nice and green and full. The picture on the bottom, the only difference is that field was treated with the PHC 279 seed treatment, and you can see it's diseased and foliage is brown and has died off. So that gives you an impression of what a grower actually sees as a result of treating his fields with PHC 279. Now on the next slide, focusing on activities in the US, we have multiple products under development. One advantage we have in the US is that the EPA treats our products from a regulatory perspective very favorably, and so the timeline for registration is considerably accelerated compared to traditional chemical fungicides or other pesticides. So it's a faster track approval, and the amount of data that we have to submit is considerably less, making it a cheaper approval process. We were working with partners who are testing PHC in a variety of crops in the US, including soybeans, corn, wheat, and a variety of vegetable and specialty crops. We're expecting the product to be approved in the US in the second half of 2022 for a variety of diseases and across a range of crops. So it'll be a broad approval. So in addition to PHC 279, we're also developing PHC 949, which is being developed for nematode control. Nematodes are small soil worms that destroy plant roots and provide opportunities for disease to enter into the plants. And so there are a lot of opportunities for improved nematode control in the US and abroad. We're currently targeting submitting this product to the EPA for approval in mid-2021. We also have PHC 404, which is being developed as an adjuvant for improving plant nutrition. We've got some excellent data in almonds, which I'll say more about in another slide. And that can be approved very quickly, and we're pursuing that currently. Now, the exciting news that Chris mentioned during his introduction is we just recently signed a joint development agreement with Wilbur Ellis for the development of a number of peptides in specialty crops. Wilbur Ellis is one of the 3 or 4 largest distributors of agrochemical products in the US. They sell more than $3.4 billion in the US primarily. They're focused more strongly on the western part of the United States and the West Coast, but they have operations more broadly in the US. And so, as I said, they're developing multiple products with us across specialty crops, that's fruits and vegetables, as for disease control as well as for nutrition products. In addition to JDA, as I said, we have a number of collaborations ongoing with other partners who are looking at Pretech products primarily in the US for row crops such as corn, soy, wheat, and other crops. So we're really excited about the potential of Pretech in the US as well. Now, looking at the economics of why Pretech products are so exciting, We already talked about the benefits for growers that we've seen in Brazil. In the US, for example, PHC 414, when applied to strawberries as a foliar product, resulted in increased yield worth approximately $6,000 per acre. Now, if you apply that across the 45,000 acres in which strawberries are grown, you can see the economic opportunity there is pretty substantial. For PHC 404 in almonds, from our trials, we saw a increased yield worth approximately $1,600 per acre in benefit to the growers. And across the 1.2 million acres in which almonds are grown in the US, that's again a very large economic opportunity. Now, in addition to bringing these benefits to growers, one advantage of these products is the low application rates. Compared to traditional pesticidal products, they're extremely low in terms of the application rates. Now, these rates are being refined through continuing field studies, but currently in Brazil, the application rate is between 9 and 27 grams of product per hectare of treated seed. In U.S. strawberries and almonds, the rates where the product is applied as a foliar, the rates are somewhat higher, but still a very low 50 to 60 grams per acre applied multiple times per season. And it's important to recognize that these products contain only 1% active ingredient, the peptide. The rest of the 99% is basically filler to make it easier to handle. So in addition to the low application rates, these products are quite cheap to produce. They're currently being manufactured at pilot scale at Penn State to support our launch in Brazil. And as Zhangmin mentioned, we're working with tollers to scale up manufacture to commercial scale manufacturing. And by doing that, we'll avoid having to spend millions of dollars to establish our own manufacturing facilities. There's plenty of fermentation capacity out in the industry that we're tapping into, and it's fairly cost effective. Now, taking all of this together means there's a substantial margin opportunity for the pre-tech products. We'll price them according to the benefits that will accrue to the growers in the different crops and geographies, but certainly the gross margin opportunity is comparable at least to the margin we currently see with our commercial business selling the second generation Harp Alpha Beta product. So we're pretty excited about the economic opportunity in addition to the agronomic benefits to the growers. Now, the last slide I want to share with you is just an overview of the pre-tech pipeline of development products. We've talked on the left-hand side, you'll see the product designation and the geography, and then the blue bars with the little symbols below them give you some idea of the timeline for registration and launch of these products. We've talked already about PHC 279 in Brazil, where it's going to be registered early in 2021 and then rolled out in the second half of 21 to customers. In the US, the product is in the course of being registered, and we expect it to be registered in mid-2022 for a variety of disease control indications. PHC 404, which we talked a little bit about specifically for almonds, is being positioned as an enhancement to existing micronutrient products, essentially as a fertilizer enhancement product to improve yield. That's a substantial market, and that product can be rolled out in 2021 and beyond. For nematode control, we have PHC 949 in the US and Brazil. We're targeting filing that product for approval in the US in 2021, and hopefully by the end of 2021 in Brazil. An excellent opportunity for improved nematode control solutions. Now in Europe, the opportunity is perhaps larger than anywhere else, given the regulatory pressure that existing pesticidal products are coming under. Growers are losing access to pesticides on a daily basis as registrations are being canceled by the various government entities. We've looked into that, and we understand the challenges in getting these products registered in Europe, and we're ready to do so, but unfortunately we haven't had the resources up till now to file and pursue these registrations. But that's something we're looking forward to addressing via getting access to additional funds to pursue. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it back to Chris to take us through some of the milestones in the near term for pre-tech.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you taking us through that. I just have two final slides here to wrap up. The first one, the milestones we have over the next 1 or 2 years so that investors can track how we're doing. Firstly, the PHC 279 launch in Brazil, which Mark has told you about. Track when we get the federal registration in the first half of next year. We also plan to keep people informed about the results we get from the many, many trials we put out ourselves and our partners during the 20 to 21 soy growing season, which was planted about a month ago, so by the middle of next year. And we'll be presenting at the World Soybean Congress in the middle of next year. And finally, of course, there'll be the great excitement for us of launching the product in time for the October 2021 soy crop. In the USA, we will keep the market informed from time to time on our progress with Wilbur Ellis, who I can tell you, since we've made the announcement, have been very enthusiastic and engaging very actively with us. We'll also keep you informed about discussions with partners for row crops, remembering that the Wilbur Ellis deal is only for fruits and vegetables. As we achieve the PHC 279 registration in the second half of 2022 and the submission of the PHC 949 registration to the EPA next year. And then as we track towards multiple launches in 2022, 23, we'll keep you informed. And finally, of course, in relation to capabilities, we'll keep the market informed about progress with appointing a toll manufacturer, which we anticipate probably in the middle of next year, and then further patent grants to extend our IP. And this is really exciting for us to be moving towards our first launches. So as a summary then, this is really a groundbreaking proprietary platform in the heart of the new trend to sustainable agriculture. Think of PreTech as vaccines for plants, as Jean-Min has set it out, with substantial benefits for growers, not only economic benefits, but promoting sustainable farming. And then for us as a company, the opportunity for us is to launch a broad pipeline of PreTech peptides over a number of years with excellent ESG credentials, delivering us high gross margins comparable to our existing Harpin 73-odd%. And we plan to scale this from Brazil, then on to US, and then roll this out globally. There is global demand for these products. And so it's been a long, hard road, guys. I first started talking to Jean-Min about this right at the end of 2012, and I'm really excited after we spent more than $20 million of shareholders' money that we are close to that first launch in 2021 and thereafter into very large markets around the world. So thank you very much, everybody, for your attention, and we'd be happy to take some questions. So maybe Paul, we should put our cameras back on at this point.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Jean-Min, Mark, Chris, thank you very much for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, do please continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you that recording the presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard on the Investor Meet Company platform. Lastly, before I hand back to Jean-Min, Mark and Chris, I'd like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company. Immediately after the presentation has ended, you'll be redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. But before we look at some of the questions that have been submitted today, I wanted to ask you guys a number of questions we've had pre-submitted by investors ahead of today's presentation. And Chris, perhaps I could start with you first, but it is addressed to you if that's okay.
Sure.
The first question we've got here, Chris, prior to PHC, you transformed Arista Life Sciences into a global ag business with sales of circa $1.6 billion. Why were you attracted to PHC in the first place, and do you continue to see a substantial opportunity to realize value?
Yeah, it's interesting. Having run a pretty substantial sized company, what interested me about plant healthcare was essentially the technology. And I remember, Jean-Min, you and I sitting down in New York at the end of 2012 and talking about the technology. And I'd heard about the technology in the past from colleagues who'd left Syngenta specifically to work with the Harpin technology, and were very, very excited about it. But somehow or other, the technology had not fulfilled the technical promise it had. And I came to the conclusion that was because we needed to restructure the company, we needed to restructure our commercial operations, and reposition biological products. Frankly, it's been a long, hard road. Biological products are not easy to manage in the field. But I'm really excited, both on the commercial side. We've made substantial progress over the last 3 years in driving profitable sales. This year, our Harp and Alpha Beta business will be profitable and cash generative for the first time, and starting to make a material contribution to the costs of launching Pretec products. And Pretec, I take my hat off to Xiaomin particularly, and his team in Seattle, who worked diligently for 8 years to go through that whole process that Xiaomin has set out. And I have to say, my excitement about Pretec has only increased over particularly the last couple of years as we move towards those first launches. It's been a great journey. I have to say that it's taken longer than I thought, but I should have known that after 30 years in the industry. Agriculture always does, but we really are getting there. I'm excited about it. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Chris. The next question I think is pretty much targeted at you, Mark. If I could just read that out to you. What opportunities do you see to conclude further joint development agreements or licensing deals in the near term? And how do you structure these? Is it per crop or per geography?
Thanks for that question. It very much depends on the opportunity that's on the table. My focus right now is to a great degree on Brazil and establishing a commercial arrangement with one or more distributors for the product in Brazil. The nature of that will be probably limited to soybeans, and it'll be for disease control because that's the nature of the registration that we're going to be granted by the federal agencies. I would prefer to strike a joint venture under which the parties share the upside as opposed to a straight supply agreement type relationship, but I'm very much flexible depending on the needs of the partner and ourselves at that time. In the U.S., I certainly think there's an opportunity to create a joint venture similar to the exciting deal we entered with Wilbur Ellis, but focused on row crops like corn and soy, cotton, wheat, and other row crops. And I am in discussions with a number of partners who are evaluating various product concepts that would align with that strategy. So those are probably the two geographies where I'm most focused. And as I said, the nature of the deal will depend very much on the needs of the partner and the geography itself.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Thank you. And the final one, I think, is the creator of Pretec, I think, is angled at you, Xiaomin. What is so unique about the Pretec family of products, and what's the competitive landscape like?
Thank you, Mark, for the question. We, in a presentation, I think that we probably mentioned on that, what's the unique of the technology. I would like to summarize as the following. Number one, I want to emphasize again, it is a platform technology. By design and modify amino acid sequence in a particular peptide, we can create multiple products with specific targeted performance, such as disease, nematodes, growth, yield, and my colleague and myself talked about this morning. So that's number one. There are lots of the biological kind of material or product in the world that people talking about, but very few can have that kind capacity able to create multiple molecules for multiple products. So that's really the one unique. Second one, I would say the mode of the action. And we know after the investment and many, many years commitment, we know how it works. It works through the inside out, able to turn on innate plant its own pre-existing mechanisms, such as defense or growth. So we also know precisely how the pathway are activated and leads to a beneficial effect. That's also very rare. Lots of the molecule in the market, they may say, yeah, it works, do this, do that, but very few probably know how it works. So in our case, the pre-tech react like antigen. Once get into the plant, will be recognized by plant its own pre-existing receptor-like protein by binding, the chemical binding. Once binding together, the cascade response triggered, activated, then leads to all the beneficial response Chris and Mark talked about in the last 20 minutes. Number 3, environmentally sound. You may think about all the biological environmentally sound. It's in large degree may be true, but in our case, even more particularly, for example, almost since it's a peptide or protein-based product, once go to the environment, quickly degraded into edible nutritional element by microorganism, by other living organisms. So almost no, or at least no demonstrable residual activity. And also during the production, that will be number 4, I consider unique compare the other competitors. And the material is biological, however, it's relatively easy, simple to make it. Our fermentation is a water, yeast extract-based fermentation, and the method can be easily transferred to a total manufacturer. And also in production, zero discharge. Once the material go to the tank, and after process, all converted to the product. So no wastewater discharge is environmentally very sound. So that's, in my view, how the technology is unique.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you very much indeed. Guys, I know I haven't given you a great amount of time to review the questions that we have had submitted today, but perhaps if I could just hand back to you and you can give your answers where it's appropriate to do so. Chris, if I could just ask you to read out the question and who it's from, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. There's a number of questions come in, all of them really, really good questions. We'll answer those that we can right now, and others we'll answer in writing afterwards, if that's okay. So the first question that came in from Christopher H. If the improved yield, this relates to Brazil soy, is $75 per hectare, what would the cost be? Which I assume you mean what would the farmer pay? Well, we're not publishing our price list just yet, but if you work on the basis that we want to make sure that the growers get a really good return, so that there's strong demand for the product to get the volume, but clearly we're optimizing our long-term gross margin opportunity. We want to be able to offer the growers a return on investment of 5 to 7 times. 6 times would be great. So you could do the math on that pretty much. Somewhere in the region of $10 to $15 a hectare would be a reasonable estimate. But we will price it to optimize our gross margin opportunity once we finished once we're ready to launch. If I could move on, the next one was a more general question about the company from an existing shareholder, Richard M. And Richard says, your broker Arden has no revenue estimates for 2021. Can you comment in broad terms, top line potential, cash flow positive, extra funding required? So I really want to focus on pre-take in this presentation, but very, very briefly. We will, as we normally do, make a trading statement towards the end of January on our 2020 trading, and at that time we anticipate reinstating market expectations, including for the year 2021. I would like to say that 2020, we've had a good first half, which we have published already. We've had a pretty good second half, although I would have liked to have seen a higher number, frankly. There are two things which have held us back a little bit. One is that we have resolved to reduce in-market inventory, which we are doing. And the second is we have had some COVID-19 effects, which have included, for example, our inability to raise prices in Mexico, and some markets have been held back. But we are extremely excited about the growth prospects for 2021, based upon the increase in on-ground sales, of which we now have very strong visibility, particularly in specialty crops in the US, where we sell through Wilbur Ellis, in corn in the US, where we sell through the second largest distributor in the country, and in sugarcane in Brazil. Now, each of those on-ground sales have more than doubled in 2020 compared with 2019. So we are anticipating really strong revenue growth in 2021. As we move forward, the cash that we generate from our commercial business will help us both to finance our ambitions in pre-tech and to turn the company cash positive. We published that in the first half of 2020, we burned $1.8 million of cash, compared with $2.8 million in the first half of 2019. And if you look at our cash burn over the period 2018, 19, 20, there's been a very substantial and significant decrease in our cash runway as we track towards making this company cash positive. As at the 30th of June, we had just over $5 million of cash in the bank, so cash and cash equivalents. So we have reasonable cash to take us forward. We are determined to get to cash positive as soon as we reasonably can. At the same time, fund our pre-tech. At the moment, we're holding, as Mark has alluded to, this is a long conversation that we have as a team and as a board. We're holding back some of our plans in order to promote cash positive. So I hope that answers that question. There is one question here that I'd like to pass to Mark. This is from Simon C. Given the patents you have and the timeline to commercial launch, would it not be easier for a big agri player to take you over? And what tools do you have to protect this from happening? Mark, while you're thinking about that, clearly, we as a company, we're very excited about pre-tech, and the board is conscious of, on the one side, the need to optimize long-term shareholder value, and secondly, we are a public company. If somebody came along with a very substantial offer, we would have to look at that seriously in the interest of shareholders. Mark, do you want to talk about our discussions though with major agrochemical players where we're looking potentially to license the product? Because my view is that they're more interested potentially in licensing the product than in buying the company at this point.
Sure, Chris, I can add a few things there. So in my conversations with the global agrochemical powerhouses, what I've observed is, well, some of the companies are interested in acquiring a platform technology that they can use in a variety of indications across crops and geographies. An equal number are simply seeing that they have certain gaps in their portfolios that they're looking to fill with specific product opportunities. And so those companies, their approach is they would rather have us develop and launch the product, individual products that they could then slot into their portfolios, rather than acquire the technology as a platform that they could then mine for subsequent generations of products. So I think that there is certainly potential for a big acquisition from a platform perspective for these large companies to mine the platform for years to come. I think it's more likely that these companies will, on a product-by-product basis, invest in filling gaps in their portfolios to solve identified needs that their customers have.
Thank you, Mark. Paul, if we've got time, there are two more really good questions which I would like to answer, if I may.
Of course.
One from Albert F. You've got an impressive product line coming along. My questions are, what do you need in terms of organization to capture the market opportunity? Now, we're a pretty small organization, and I think that's the right thing to be very lean. And our approach will be to work with the best partner for each product, each peptide product, in each opportunity. And it's really important that we segment the market. And Mark has talked about that. For example, in the US, we will work with Wilbur Ellis on our agreement covers 4 specific peptides. We will work with them specifically. We're committed with them to develop and market those 4 specific peptides in specialty crops, in fruits and vegetables within the US. So that's a very specific target, a very large target, but a very specific one. We would anticipate working with different partners in row crops, and we may work with different partners in row crops for different peptides. And similarly in Brazil, as we go forward, we will probably appoint a single national distributor because in Brazil the distribution is not as consolidated as it is in the US. It's much more fragmented, and frankly, for a small company to manage multiple distributors, to have many promoters in the field, to manage accounts receivables, all these things would be a huge challenge for us as a small company, and our preference, therefore, is to work with another company which is well established in Brazil. So if we adopt that kind of approach around the world, we should be able to minimize the internal capability that we have. But the capabilities we've got to have, Jean-Min and the Seattle laboratory are absolutely fundamental for discovering further peptides, characterizing them in the laboratory, in the greenhouse, in early field trials, to developing production methodology, to understanding the mode of action, and the capability to patent, the capability to particularly to register, because we need to control regulatory submissions. Those are the sorts of things that we will focus on. We would love to do a little bit more than we are already, particularly in the European Union, where we've held back partly because the regulatory landscape for biological products in the European Union has not been clear. It is now more clear over the last few months, and it's a question of resource and priority now. So I guess I hope that answers your question there, Albert. And I would like to just close, if I may, with one final question, which I'm going to try and answer, but I'd love to hear what Mark and Jean-Min also say, because this is such a good question, from Abby R. Why wouldn't every farmer use Pretec, given the proven benefit it brings to the crop and the financial benefits to the farmers? Well, I hope they will. I hope many farmers will. We have to recognize we're in a competitive marketplace, and there are other offerings to farmers. We are a unique offering, but I have had for several years now a modest ambition that farmers would make at least one peptide application to every hectare of crop that they grow. And I think if we were able to do that over the few 100 million hectares of land which farmers grow in the world, I would be personally very happy. Mark, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's much I can add to that, Chris. I think it would be great to have a peptide on every acre. There are certainly mechanistic arguments for why growers would see benefit from doing that in the same way that they apply fertilizer to every acre. But I think in the near term, my focus at least is going to be on discrete product offerings for solving particular problems that growers have, and hopefully over time that'll grow and expand to something more consistent with ADR's proposal.
John Min, these are your inventions. They're pretty much your children. How do you see them flourishing?
Yeah, the technology in every acre will be dream, but also that might create the antitrust, right? The Microsoft put the operation system in every desktop. I think it'll be seriously, it take time. Any technology promotion or get into the grower's hand, take lots of the factor to that make that happen. So what we are doing is try to do as much as we can to closer to what we desire to do. But it's even like today's immunization. The vaccine is available, but how to get in 7 billion people in the world at the same time? It takes time. I think so that's what we as a team, as a company, try to do now to minimize that kind of timing and get into the market quickly as much as possible. But it also takes resources too. So thank you.
Thank you, John. That's a really good point about time for investors. Although it's frustrating, you've seen it's taken us 8 years to get this far. Every farmer needs to be convinced. Every farmer needs to try it. Every farmer needs to build his own experience. And most farmers only grow one crop a year, so it does take a long time to get there. But we are highly ambitious with Pretech, and over a number of years, we believe that the Pretech peptides will be very widely used. So, Paul, if I could pass back to you, I think we've probably exhausted people's patience at this point.
Thanks, Chris. I think you have addressed pretty much all the questions we've had in from investors. And of course, the company will review all of the questions submitted there if any further questions do come through, and they'll be published back on the Investor Meet Company platform. Chris, just before we do redirect investors to give you some feedback, perhaps I could just ask you just for a few final words just to wrap up, please.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody, for your time today. I hope you can see how after 8 years of hard work and $20 million, more than $20 million investment, we're all really, really excited about working towards the first launch of a Pretech peptide in 2021, and beyond that to maybe one peptide on every acre around the world in the long term. Thank you very much for your attention.
That's great. Thank you indeed. So thank you, Jean-Maud. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Chris, for updating investors today. Could I ask investors not to close the session, as you will now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback. If you access the meeting from our website, the feedback page will appear in front of you. If you access it via the link in the email you've been sent, you'll be asked to log in and submit your feedback. Do please take a few moments to do so. It's really important to the company. So on behalf of Plant Healthcare, we'd like to say thank you for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's event. Thank you very much and good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.